Okay, so today we're gonna like dive deep, into this artist, Bob Camblin.
Oh, yeah, Camblin.
Yeah, and we've got like all this stuff, right? We have his quotes and reflections. We have like a whole biography about his life and career. We even have this YouTube analysis thing about his piece, High and to the Right,
Interesting.
and some excerpts from like his own book talking about the same piece.
Oh, wow. So we can kind of see like his own take.
Exactly. And then we also have like reviews and forwards and all that to like give it some historical context.
Yeah, put it all in perspective.
So our mission, I guess, is to try and like put all this together so we can really quickly understand how Camblin like saw art.
Okay, get into his head a little.
Yeah, and also like the meanings in his art because there are a lot of layers there.
I've heard that, yeah, he was known for his.
Those are the best.
Okay.
So to start us off, let me read you this quote from Camblin. He says, "Fortunately, some things remain forever, or another 10 years perhaps."
Ah,
I know, right?
that's so Camblin.
Right. Kind of gives you a feel for him. He's playful, but also kind of deep.
Yeah, he's got that like ironic look at time, nothing's really permanent.
Exactly. And that's something we're going to
Interesting.
see like over and over again as we go through his art.
Okay, cool. I'm ready.
Okay, so Bob Camblin was born in 1928 in Oklahoma, and it seems like he was just destined to be an artist.
Really? How so?
Well, both of his parents were artists.
Oh, wow. So he was like surrounded by it from day one.
Totally. He was like exposed to all the materials and the techniques and like just the whole mindset of creating art.
That's got to be huge. I mean, to have that kind of influence right from the beginning.
Right. It really shapes you. So that's like the foundation of his style.
Makes sense.
And then he went on to get like formal training, the Kansas City Art Institute.
Okay.
And that's where he met Forrest Harrisberger.
Another artist.
Yeah, they became like lifelong friends. It's so cool to think about them like as young artists, talking about art and trying new things.
Yeah, influencing each other for sure.
Right, and like shaping each other's paths.
I wonder what they talked about.
I know, right? It'd be fascinating to know. But beyond art school, Camblin was a big reader, like super curious.
What did he read?
Well, he was into like Ralph Waldo Emerson and the I Ching,
Okay.
and also haiku and haiga poetry.
Interesting. So like a mix of philosophy and like Eastern stuff.
Exactly. And it's clear that all this reading like really informed his art. It wasn't just separate. It all fed into his creative thinking.
Yeah, like that focus on simple expression in haiku. Maybe that connects to how he later hid those images in his watercolors.
It's totally possible. Okay, so then he served in the Air Force Reserve during the Korean War.
Wow, didn't know that about him.
Right. It's not what you usually expect from a fine artist.
Yeah, not the typical path.
And then came a really big turning point.
Mm-hmm.
He got a Fulbright scholarship to go to Italy.
Oh, wow. Italy, that's got to be inspiring for an artist.
Right. And what's really interesting is like the specific things that influenced him there.
What do you mean?
Well, he was obviously blown away by the Uffizi Gallery, all those masterpieces of figurative art.
Of course, but I thought he was more into abstract stuff.
He was, but he was also drawn to like the Capuchin catacombs in Palermo,
What are those?
or these underground tombs with like preserved human remains.
Whoa, that's kind of creepy.
I know, right? But Camblin was fascinated. And so he had this like mix of classical art and then this darker macabre side.
That's a weird combo.
It is. And that's what makes him so unique,
Let's see, so his own style starts to come through, right?
Yeah, exactly. And when he came back to the States, he taught at a bunch of different schools.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like the Ringling School of Art and eventually Rice University in Houston.
Okay.
But there's this quote about his time in Salt Lake City. It's kind of funny. He thought it was too Philistine. Like they didn't appreciate art. Yeah. And he was really looking for a place that was more art savvy. So he ended up in Houston.
So he needed to be around other artists and people who got his work.
Yeah, he needed that community.
That makes sense. I mean, artists feed off each other.
Totally. Okay, so then in 1976, he did something pretty drastic.
What was that?
He quit teaching.
Oh, wow. He left academia completely.
Yeah, to become a nomadic artist.
What does that even mean?
He basically traveled all over just making art.
So like a free spirit just following his muse?
Totally. And he funded it all through selling his work and taking commissions.
Wow, that's brave, just trusting that he could make a living that way.
He shows how dedicated he was.
Yeah, and he was really committed to his own artistic freedom. Like he didn't want to be tied down.
Exactly. And he has this great quote about it. He says,
Yeah.
"The artist today is the only free agent. He is not committed except so much as he desires it."
That's a powerful statement.
Yeah, he was charting his own course.
So how do you think that nomadic life, like, affected his art?
Hmm, that's a good question. I think it probably made him rely even more on his intuition, you know?
Yeah, like stripping away all those academic theories.
Right, and being out in the world, seeing new things,
Yeah.
it probably exposed him to all sorts of different visual languages and stories.
Right, like absorbing all that, and it shows up in his art.
Maybe. So let's get into his artistic philosophy, like the beliefs behind his work.
Okay.
One of the big things is his focus on direct experience and intuition.
That's very zen.
Right, and it comes up again and again. This idea that art should speak to your emotions and make you think.
Yeah, it's not about like figuring out a puzzle or understanding a message.
Exactly. It's about feeling something.
Okay.
And he was really into paradox, like contradictions and hidden meanings.
That sounds complicated.
Well, he has this quote that's kind of cryptic. He says, art is and it isn't, and now everyone knows.
That's so vague.
I know, right? But it makes you think, doesn't it? Like, what is art anyway?
It does, actually.
And he would put these things he called data problems and traps in his drawings.
What are those?
They're like visual puzzles or things that are unclear on purpose.
So he wanted to mess with the viewer.
Yeah, kind of. But it wasn't about being mean or anything. It was about making people look closer and think harder.
Okay, so he wanted to engage people.
Totally. He wanted them to have their own experience with the art.
That's cool.
And he also didn't think words were enough to capture art.
Interesting.
He said painters and sculptors often reject words as dangerous to the perception of their art.
So he thought words could limit the experience.
Yeah, like they could box it in.
That makes sense.
And this ties into High and to the Right, where he really embraces imperfection and things that are broken.
Ah, okay.
And it connects to this Japanese idea of wabi-sabi.
What's that?
It's about finding beauty in things that are flawed or impermanent.
Oh, like the beauty of decay.
Yeah, and the Zen idea that real beauty isn't about being perfect.
Interesting.
So can you describe High and to the Right for those who haven't seen it?
Sure. So on the surface, it looks like a simple, stilly life. Okay. There's a potted plant in front of a window,
Mm-hmm.
but when you look closer, you see all these weird details.
Like what?
Well, the window pane is all cracked.
From what?
Bullet holes.
Whoa, okay.
Yeah. And you can see a skyline and some trees through the broken glass.
Okay.
But then there are these hidden images, like in the leaves of the plant and the glass.
What kind of images?
Well, there are hearts and then these glowing circles that look like the Zen onstruk.
Really?
Yeah, and even some shapes that kind of look like UFOs.
So it's like peaceful, but also kind of unsettling?
Exactly. It's that juxtaposition, the organic plant and the hard lines of the window.
And then the bullet holes, too.
Right, adding this element of danger.
But the plant is still just growing.
Yeah, it's resilient.
And the title High and to the Right. It's kind of a pun, right?
Yeah, it describes where the bullet holes are, but it also makes you think about other things.
Like what?
Well, it could be about ballistics, or maybe Camblin's position when he was painting.
That's right.
Or even about writing, like the act of creation.
So many layers.
Yeah, and those bullet holes, they're so central to the piece.
High and to the right.
Yeah, they disrupt the peacefulness. You can't ignore them.
They make you think about violence and intrusion.
Exactly.
But then you have those hidden symbols.
Right, like the hearts.
Well, yeah. What do they mean?
Well, maybe they represent love and tenderness.
Like, even though there's damage, there's still love.
Yeah. Or maybe the persistence of life.
And in the end, yeah.
It's so interesting because it represents wholeness and enlightenment, but it's next to this shattered glass.
Yeah, so it's like wholeness can exist even in brokenness.
Exactly.
And then the UFOs.
Well, they're just mysterious,
And another layer.
Yeah, maybe they're about the unknown or things we can't see.
And all of this relates back to those Zen ideas.
Right, like the wabi-sabi.
Yeah, the bullet holes are like the cracks.
Yeah.
And they become part of the beauty.
And the ensha, too, it's never perfect.
It's about the process.
Yeah, and they connect high and to the right to the I Ching.
Really?
Yeah, specifically to hexagram 23 Po, which is about splitting apart.
So the bullet holes represent that.
Yeah, like things breaking down before they can be renewed.
And it's also connected to hexagram 42 Yi, which is about increase.
Right, like how growth often comes from loss.
So the plant represents that.
Yeah, it keeps growing even though there's damage all around it.
It's resilient.
And there's a connection to Taoism, too.
Okay.
Like the idea of Wu Wei, which is about effortless action.
So like going with the flow.
Yeah, and in this case, the broken window could be about accepting change,
Instead of resisting it.
Right. Sometimes things need to fall apart so we can see things more clearly.
And the cracks in the glass, They're not something to hide.
They're part of the story.
Yeah, they add to the meaning.
And the YouTube analysis said, to see through something, whether a belief, a structure, or an illusion, is a process of breaking and reinterpreting.
That's a great quote.
Yeah, it really sums it up.
So high and to the right makes you think about where you focus your attention.
Yeah. Will you look at the damage or the growth?
It's a choice.
And Camblin was also all about collaboration.
Oh, yeah. He worked with Earl Staley and Joe Tate in this group called B&E Productions.
And they were like really challenging the art world.
How so?
Well, they would sign their pieces as anonymous.
Real?
Yeah, they wanted to get rid of the ego, you know?
So it wasn't about individual fame.
Exactly. It was about the collective creation.
That's cool.
And he also collaborated with Nancy Giordano on this project called Mushas Volantes.
What was that?
It used dots and dashes to create optical illusion.
Oh, wow. So different from his watercolors.
Yeah, he was always experimenting, you know?
So versatile.
He started with abstract impressionism, but then he brought in elements of Dada and surrealism.
Like what?
Well, maybe those unexpected images or the dreamlike quality in some pieces.
So he was pushing boundaries.
Yeah, always.
And then in the 1970s, he went back to Houston, and his work became more mystical.
Real?
Yeah, he wanted to create these subjective states of mind in the viewer.
So it was about more than just what you see.
Exactly. It was about feeling something deeper.
And there were all these recurring images in his work.
Like what?
Well, things like the cycle of life and death metamorphosis puppets, scarecrows, skulls, and a lot of water imagery.
Huh. That's interesting.
And it's all connected to other things, you know, like Freud and Di Chirico.
So he was drawing on all these different sources.
Yeah, and the puppets, for example, they could symbolize control and free will.
Oh, that's deep.
Like, we're all puppets in a way.
Maybe. And later on, he started combining drawings and watercolors.
Okay.
And he would hide images in these layered pieces.
So you had to really look closely.
Yeah, it was like a reward for paying attention.
And he became known as this iconoclastic and enigmatic artist.
What does that even mean?
Basically, he was a rebel and a mystery.
And his work is super rare now.
Yeah, it's hard to find.
Which just adds to the mystique.
Totally.
There's this quote from a review that I love. It says, "What is art but a series of questions disguised as images?"
That's perfect for Camblin.
Right. He wanted to make you think.
And he's influenced so many artists who came after him.
His legacy lives on.
And we have this great story from his friend Earl Staley.
Yeah, he said Camblin's apartment was like a wizard's den.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
I know, right? And he even had a Mr. Peanut costume.
What?
Yeah, and he would sometimes sign his work as Mr. Peanut or just anonymous.
That's so funny.
He sounds like a really cool guy.
Yeah, real character.
He died in 2006, but his supporters in Houston are trying to put together some posthumous exhibitions.
That's great. You know, so more people can see his work.
So to sum it all up, Bob Camblin was an artist who didn't fit into any one box.
He was one of a kind.
Yeah, he mixed all these influences together, you know, Zen surrealism, all sorts of things.
And his art was about looking deeper.
Yeah, and finding beauty in unexpected places.
And his life showed how much he loved art, you know?
He was dedicated.
So I hope this deep dive has helped you understand Camblin's world a little better.
Yeah, we tried to give you some insights and those aha moments.
Without overwhelming you.
Exactly. And we want to leave you with a final thought.
Okay.
Think about a time in your life when something unexpected happened. Something that might have seemed bad at first.
Like a failure or a loss.
Yeah, but did it end up changing your perspective?
Or helping you see things in a new way.
Like maybe you learned something valuable from it.
Or found beauty in the broken pieces.
Exactly. Can you look at that experience through Camblin's eyes?
And appreciate the cracks.
That's what he would want us to do.
Yeah, to find the meaning and everything.
Even the hard stuff.
That's life, right?
It is.
Thanks for listening.
See ya.
Bye.